In this video, we will dive into the movie The Gangster, The Cop and the Devil. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide the reviews and personal reactions. So let's begin. As a fan of actor Ma Dong-seok, whose previous works include stellar performances in films like Train to Busan, Along with the Gods, The Two Worlds, and Along with the Gods, The Last 49 Days, I had high hopes for The Gangster, The Cops, The Devil. Fortunately, this gritty Korean thriller did not disappoint. In The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, a 2019 South Korean action thriller directed by Lee Won-tae, the plot revolves around three central characters: a serial killer, a hardened gangster, and a determined cop. Jang Dong-soo, a ruthless crime boss, becomes the target of a killer, leading to a brutal encounter that leaves both injured. Detective Jung Tae-suk suspects the work of a serial killer, but his superiors remain skeptical. Reluctantly, Tae-suk and Dong-soo form an uneasy alliance to capture the elusive killer, each motivated by different goals: justice and promotion for Tae-suk and revenge for Dong-soo. As they navigate a dangerous criminal underworld, the film is punctuated by intense hand-to-hand combat and knife fights, culminating in a high-stakes showdown. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil offers a unique resolution that challenges traditional crime thriller narratives, making it a standout entry in the genre with compelling character dynamics and thrilling action sequence. A gangster you cannot help but root for. Ma Dong-seok's portrait for Jang Dong-soo, the gangster entitled in a deadly game with a serial killer, was nothing short of exceptional. It's a testament to his acting powers that I found myself rooting for the gangster more than the cop. Dong-soo's charismatic presence adds depth to his character and elevates the overall view experience. His fight scenes are undoubtedly the highlights of the film. He embodies the role of a powerhouse, required multiple adversaries to take him down, much like a formidable tank in the midst of battle. Notably, Dong-soo's introduction scene, where he knowingly unleashes his strength on a punching bag, unsealing a person inside, left a lasting impression, effectively setting the tone for his character's unyielding nature. Moreover, his strict adherence to his own set of principles, akin to the famous professionals have standards meme, showcases the layers within his gangster persona, making him a standout and intriguing figure in the movie's narrative. One notable aspect of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is its approach to action. Unlike many American films that rely heavily on gunfights, this Korean thriller delves into hand-to-hand combat and knife fight, which I personally find more engaging to watch. The fight choreography is executed and precision, adding intensity to the action scenes. One of my favorite fight scenes was when the gangster and cop find themselves forced to team up in a high-octane fight against a rival gang. This unexpected alliance brings a unique dynamic to the action sequence. There's a moment in the midst of the chaotic brawl, then tension runs so high that the gangster and cop nearly attack each other. During the climax of this scene, the cop accidentally kills one of the attackers, leading to a profound dynamic and comparison with the gangster. The gangster, with a calm assurance, steps in to handle the situation and clean up the mess, highlighting the contrast between their roles and moral codes. The cop, unable to accept his action, is left desperate and with no other choices than to let the gangster handle the cleanup. These moments add depth to the characters and elevate the stakes of the action, making it not only visually appealing but also emotionally charged, further enhancing the overall impact of the film. A unique resolution. What sets his film apart is its ability to keep viewers guessing before they even caught the serial killer. I found myself pondering possible solution where both sides could emerge victorious. To my satisfaction, the film's conclusion offered a unique resolution. The serial killer is sent to prison and the gangster too ends up behind the same bars. In most of his scenes, the killer is seen smiling, adding an airy and unsettling element to his character. Yet, as he observes the gangster being led into the very same prison to occupy, the killer's smile finally fades. This subtle yet impactful shift in the killer's demon signifies a turning point in the narrative. As is often the case in prison dramas, it leaves you with a sense of poetic justice where the characters' fates become unintertwined in a way that challenge their initial positions and executions, ultimately delivering a satisfying and thought-provoking conclusion. Final verdict: 4 out of 5 stab wounds. In the end, the gangster, the cop, the devil offers a thrilling and unique cinematic experience. Ma Dong-seok's standout performance combined with the film's focus on hand-to-hand combat creates a memorable viewing experience. The movie's ability to keep you engaged and guessing makes it a worthy addition to the crime thriller genre. I would confidently rate it 4 out of 5 stab wounds, a testament to its ability to captivate and surprise. If you are a fan of action-packed crime dramas, enjoy films that challenge traditional narratives, or simply appreciate a movie that keeps you on your toes, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil should be on your watch list. It's a testament to the enduring appeal of South Korean cinema, known for its ability to craft compelling stories that leave a lasting impact. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, Pulpy thriller packs a punch. Although its final exaggerates credulity and the structure is a bit wonky, this pulpy crime thriller from Korea is still a real kick in the head. Like so many of the genre that hail from Seoul and its suburbs, this one punches well above its weight with an inventive reworking of well-worn plot tropes and slick production values. Supposedly, this was inspired by real events from a decade ago, but while the 2005 setting is mentioned, it's barely relevant. Writer-director Lee Won-tae possesses an unlikely alliance between rule-averse but goal-oriented cop Jung and seasoned crime ward Kim Jang. Densely made but light on his feet Ma Dong-seok, from Train to Busan to Catch Murderer Kim Song-kyo. Armed with what looks like a fearsome sushi knife and the haircut and cheekbones of a K-pop star, seemingly motiveless Matt Ma'am K has been killing monsters after minor fender bending incidents for some time. But Jang's spurious scoff at the idea of an American-style serial killer in Korea. But when K attacks Jang on one night and encounters a few who typically pulls out people's teeth with his bare hands for fun, he not only failed to kill his victim but creates another adversity set on revenge. Jong and Jang strike a deal to help each other to hunt down their common enemy, a cute promise that Lee manages to sail with enough sizzle and style to keep it from tugging at the logic thread too hard. There's a Sanezi car chase through the city that smashes up assorted street charts and trash cans and lots of zesty, atheistic, and bloodletting. May, with his latitudes and ruthless glare, brings heft and humor to the proceedings and easily upstages his pretty boy co-stars. It's a rumor that Sylvester Stallone has snatched the remake rights, and it's easy to guess what role he might choose for himself. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, the movie released in 2019 movie reviews. Actor Ma Dong-seok has carved and a valuable niche in South Korea cinema as a kind of all-round hybrid tough guy, sympathetic everyman thanks mainly to his turn as the working-class hero of Train to Busan. He is also a rising star in the US where he made his mark as a physical trainer to American action actor and goes by the name Don Lee. The Gangster at Il has been pegged by fanboys as probably his most enjoyable role, and while it's supposedly loosely based on a true story, it's hard not to imagine the movie was written and produced with his peculiar skill set in mind. I don't know how much the movie's box office in South Korea, but apparently it impressed Sylvester Stallone enough to buy the Hollywood rights and hire me to recreate his character in English. Ma played mob boss Jang Dong-soo, who runs a successful underground gambling operation in the city of Canaan. Though he seems a fairly reasonable type as mob bosses go, we meet him as he is practicing his boxing moves with a bag which it turns out contained a man who obviously got on his wrong side. Jang, who has paid off the local constabulary, is negotiating with a potential rival to lease his tech know-how to the rival's business, and when push comes to shove, Jang shows that he knows when to use bloody violence to make a point. Meanwhile, a serial killer is taking male drivers whom he rear-ends on back streets and then, while trading insurance information, savagely stabs them to death. At first, the police don't connect certain dots, but the usual loose cannon detective Jung Tae-suk, the kind who cannot be brought and think he is 10 times smarter than his superiors, has connected them, but he cannot convince his colleagues that the string of murder that have occurred in the past several weeks are the work of the same person. That is until one rainy night when the killer happens to target Jang, who despite his bigger bulk and better reflexes barely gets away with his life. When Jong hears about the hospitalized Jang, he tries to make a deal. They work together to catch the killer. At first, Jang wants no part of this crazy cop because he doesn't want to be any more beholden to the police than he already is. And the news that he was almost killed on the street has badly hurt his reputation in the underworld, where everybody is looking to take over your position. The only way to regain that kind of respect is to get his own revenge. The ensuing plot finds the three retro stereotypes cycling on one another in their own orbits until they gravitate so close that the inevitable fusion occurs, and director Lee Won-tae knows how to balance bone-crunching violent action scenes with smooth thriller exposition. Though there's nothing particularly original about the movie, Emmy carries his ringer bona fides like a champ. Jang's sympathetic side doesn't have to be revealed through any kind of a soppy backstory or scene of him putting his dog. He bears his humanity with loss and in fact seems like a decent employer given his occupation and the amount of hurt he can bring down on people. If the movie lacks anything, it's counter-leveling female presence. The killer for once only target men of a certain age. This is a resonantly macho movie, though you could say that Emmy at least flattened the curve. Let's hope Stallone knows what to do with him. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil, a knife-wielding serial killer Kim Sung-woo is South Korea is committing random violent murder in the dead of night, but when he accidentally targets mob boss Jang Dong-soo, played by Ma Dong-seok, the gangster survives his stabbing and teams up with cop Jung Tae-suk to hunt the killer down. It's obvious why South Korea filmed The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil has already been flagged for a US remake custody for Sylvester Stallone. Lee Won-tae slick zippy action thriller is the sort of straight-up mid-budget cops versus killer crime movie that Hollywood once churned out, but has shielded away from in recent years. Clever here with a priceless visual sheen, it's a primed for crossover appeal. All the information is there in the Rosian's title, referring to the film's three key players. The good, the bad, and the ugly was apparently already taken. The Gangster is the hulking short stupid Jang, played with physical helped by Train to Busan's breakout star Ma Dong-seok, soon to be seen in Marvel's Eternals, who hands out beating with high-school aloofness. The cop is Kim Mu-yeol, a chirkim and sarcastic but good-hearted detective who longs to fight back against the possessive criminal underworld. And then there's the devil, a motive-free murderer who coaxes his victim into danger by orchestrating minor car accidents. Jung is alone as believing that one of the crime scenes points to an active serial killer on the loose, but when Jung survives an attack from that very same murderer, both sides of the law unite to dish out some payback. Whoever gets there first, gangster or cop, gets to handle the method of justice. It's a clean, exciting setup that Lee wastes no time in establishing, setting a lively pace for the unfolding hunt. Jung and Jang make for a highly watchable duo, their conversation laced with sadistic humor. "I heard you got poked," Jung says to Jang after the latter's brutal stabbing, and barely conceals contempt. Kim and May's performance complement each other nicely. The former enjoyably cookie and brash, you could imagine Brad Pitt or Will Smith taking on the role in the 90s, the latter more powerful and controlled. It's visually stylish too, disused in neon and atmospheric lighting captured by Park Si-sung's clean, vibrant cinematography. The action, occasionally lost in a slightly choppy edit, is mostly good, especially some larger scale beatdown as the criminal gang stands against each other. In a side plot that introduced a little too much on the more streamlined serial killer thread, a final act car chase is particularly well handled as the film hustles towards its conclusion, leading to a protracted final reel that slightly overstays its welcome as it unfolds its final twist. There's not much going on beneath the energetic surface, but for the most part, the gangster, the cop, the devil is a fast-paced, entertaining thriller buoyed by two engaging leads. Don't mess it up in translation. Sly. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, Fantasia 2019. This is an updated version of an earlier. To lump all South Korean cinema together and paint the industry with a singular "this is what they do" brush is to do in a diversive. It cut across gender boundaries, topics, and subsets with standouts in each category along the way. But goddamn, do the South Korea filmmakers do dark, thoughtful crime thriller really well? Old Boy, I Saw the Devil, The Jealousy, the list goes on. The latest addition to this canon is Lee Won-tae's The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil. The premise is simple: circumstance compel vicious crime boss Jang Dong-soo, played by Ma Dong-seok, are trained to Busan to team up with cocky head cop Jung Tae-suk, warriors of the dawn, to catch hamster serial killer K. Each has their own motivations and drives that test this uneasy accord as they use each other for the resources the other has and they don't. Everyone plays everyone else on some level, twists and turns, betrayal and double crosses, and shifting allegiances and power dynamics abound. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil doesn't revolve the Prodester formula, but it offers solid action, heavy thrills, tension and pressure, and moments of stark violence. A good comparison point is a light version of Anne Hongjin's 2008 film The Chaser. While the villain is terrifying enough in the moment, creepy and leering, Kim has a sharp, sinister grin and unhinged eyes. K killing are random and unmotivated. That's scary in one regard, but fails to capitalize on that fear and form a narrative perspective. Misses the chance to create strain and anxiety with calculated stalking and hunting. At times, he is more plot device than character. Unfortunately, most of the screen time goes to Jung and Chung, Their antagonist friction drives everything toward Kim plays brash and arrogant while picking and prodding and provoking until he gets the reaction he wants. It's no surprise Ame is great, he always is, but Gangster uses his skill but especially well, calm and collected. He has a cool menace but also the physicality to drive home just how dangerous Jang is. Not in a highly skilled martial arts sense, but he has a raw edge, and when it comes down to it, he just tears through dudes in a primal, brutal way. The combination of mind and muscle helps him keep hold of his emperor and makes him a nerve-rattling figure. Only his second feature, Lee, has a strong grasp on the action elements of which there are many, plenty of car and foot chases makes excellent use of the soul landscape from the glitzy urban environments to the triangle, labyrinthine back alleys and hidden stairwell that snake through the city, juxtaposing upscale glamour with gritty streets, but it's the epic brawl that shines brightest. Multiple times he sends waves of humans crashing into one another in massive, sprawling thunderdown clearly staged and meticulously executed. They should more than satisfy action enthusiasts. At times, there's too much going on and too many subplots that don't contribute to the primary narrative. We see gangland power struggle, police corruption, boss woes at work, and more. Some add texture like illustrating the length Jang will go to or demonstrating Jang's impulsiveness, but eventually becomes get repetitive. We only need to see Jung but heads with his superior who is on the take from Jung so many times to get the point. Even with a few rough patches, the gangster, the cop, the devil bubbles with the propulsive energy, polished and glossy. It moves along with an easy, rapid momentum, myriad action beats, and another top-tier performance from Ma Dong-seok as a businessman brawler who provides a thoughtful sharpness to his fun, if familiar crime thriller. The gangster, the cop, and the devil review. Korea has dominated the midnight movie genre slots at international festivals so thoughtfully of late that it's hard not to view Lee Won-tae's The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil in terms of its shortcoming in comparison to the likes of Train to Busan, The Age of Shadows, The Wailing, and so on. But what this fun, slick but slightly forgettable, hard-boiled actioner lack in terms of the energy, originality, and inventiveness of a true Korean genre classic, it almost makes up for a showcase for the burly charisma of star Dong Lee, aka Ma Dong-seok, playing the criminal element of the title Sacrifice. Lee is a one-man weather system, so that he throws off the three-way balance a bit. The movie might as well be called The Gangster and some other guys too, I guess. The imbalance is not helped by the rather old hat characterization of the cop Jung Tae-suk, one of those incomparable, brilliantly innovative yet loose cannon police detective that already became paradoxic a couple of decades ago after Mel Gibson played the archetype into the ground. Given to busting gambling dens just for the hell of it when bored or stuck in traffic, Jung is a thorn in his captain's side, especially when one such unshadowing shakedown happens to a crew run by Jang Dong-soo. From home, Jung's captain is quietly on the take. Still, he cannot do anything about his subordinate, especially when it's discovered that there's a truth to Jong Hatch that a series of apparently random roadside murder are all the work of one man. Enter the devil, sadly the most vile character in the threesome, a motiveless psycho with an entirely arbitrary method of choosing his victims. His killing routine involves rear-ending a motorist on a lonely patch of usually rain-swept road, and when the driver gets out to examine the damage to his car, stabbing him or her to death with a kitchen knife. Though he is certainly unpleasant, it's hard to be properly terrified by such a psychological blank slate but he performs his function in the machinistic plot well enough when he picks the wrong victim. Gang boss Jang driving home from a po with a rival mobster Jang Tha taken by surprise is a powerful boxer whose workout includes using a thrust up masquerade as a literal punching bag, and he not only survives the attack but wounds and drives off his attackers. So you can see where this is going. Cop Jung and Gangster Jang are normally on opposite side of the law are going to have to team up in order to bring down the guy operating outside the law altogether. It will be a showdown finally between those with a coat and those without. Par C song's photography is polished and professional and given a gritty finish, so the images are as high contrast as the character motivations. Action is flirty and often ratly cheer-faced. It's a joy to witness Jang prompting some unfortunate punk through a thick wooden door that appears to offer as much resistance to these meaty blows as a mat of wet tissue. Are cast in monochromatic green or blue light to up the style factor. Less successful is Jo Jong-suk's score, which sometimes aim for Scorsese style jaunty jangly counterpoint and sometimes remains comfortably in the generic action register but always manage to be both intrusive and rather anomalous. But who cares about all that when there are whole gangs of apprehensions through which Don Lee gets to blondin his way like a rakish ball made of steel. And while his physical presence is never less than imposing, Lee also has the best internal character arc to play. It's not his physical injuries that drive Jang to avenge himself on the so-called devil but the unspotable, destabilizing loss of face among his gangster peers that being the victim of a random stabbing will go. It's a matter of reputation which is in John's ruthlessly disproportionate calculation a matter of business. As much fun as it is to watch Lee beat people up and strut around in shiny pinstripe suit, it's just as much of a pleasure to watch him think it all through. And so it's a good news that Sylvester Stallone's Bebop Roars, which has already scored the US remake right, have Kelly kept Lee attached and slated him to reprise his role. It makes The Gangster, The Cop and The Devil the rare foreign film that might actually be improved by its Hollywood makeover. Given that it will retain its strongest asset and hopefully upgrade some of its weaker areas, whatever the case, you need not worry too much about pursuing the difference between his perfectly serviceable action buddy crime pick and its potential English language counterpart. As underwhelmingly entertaining as it can be, it's a highly unlikely you'll remember too much about it by the time the remake rolls around. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil review a decent Korean crime thriller with a true star turn. It's a strange way watching a mediocre Korean thriller is almost as exhilarating as watching any of the legitimately great ones of the country's film industry continue to churn out. It's a while to see how standards have gotten high enough that even a rambunctious serial killer saga with an agnacious premise and a swaggering Ma Dong-seok performance can still feel like something of a disappointment. Such is the case with Lee Won-tae, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, a giddy little brewster that might feel like more of a refreshing kick to the chest, if not for how much tamer is it than the good, the bad, the weight, and how poor the plotting is when compared to a recent crime saga like 2013 Raveting New World, to name just two of the many superior movies that also happen to boast Emmy Barrel's chested charm. So whilst it's tempting to go easy on his frequently electric film and forgive it for not living up to its full potential, the most satisfying thing about Lee's spotty underwater adventure is the sense that we have had been conditioned to expect better. It would help if the first 20 minutes of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil didn't make you brace for a modern classic set in the summer of 2005 and based on some actual murder that took place around that time. Lee's script resembles the dismembered crabs of his morbid history into a conceit that cleverly blurs the thin blue line between cops and criminals. On one side of things, we have Jung Tae-suk, a triggered, happy police officer in a country where even the long arm of the law is not allowed to hold a pistol in its hand. Young, relentless, and always looking to get ahead, Jing Martin Riggs meet Lopin 3. Jung is not quite crocked, but he is willing to bend a little when the mood strikes or he gets bored in traffic. That makes him a huge pain in the for mob boss Jang Dong-soo, who cannot pay off a cop who's only interested in getting a promotion. Jong is a rusty tank of a man who has his own area of justice. The Scarface Don is introduced in a scene where he beats on a punching bag with a guy inside of it. He later squashes an underworld squabble by ripping out a henchman's teeth with his bare fingers and forcing a rival to drink them. And his power is tethered to his well-known penchant for violence, the only person in town who has not been taught to fear a guy like Jang is gay. A handsome young serial killer who drives behind his ransom victim, notches the bumper of their car, and then shaves them to death when they get out to inspect the damage. When Kay runs into Jang, it's hard to say which of them is having the unluckier night. Jang's body survives the attack. He is too beefy and boisterous to be filled with a little sharp of scarp metal, but his reputation is deadly on life support. The other gangster in the area falsely assume that Jong was the target of a mord hit gone wrong, and they can smell the wounded Don's weakness from a mile away. The only way Jong can resist its stenches is to catch K, kill him dead, and scatter his body parts around the city for all to see. But he cannot do it alone. He'll have to team up with Jong, the only local cop who is actually convinced that all the recent murder are the work of one man. Jong wants a collar and Jang wants a corpse, but they both know they need to catch K before they can decide what to do with him. It's a filthy word, Jang says, and there's no use pretending the stains will not smudge together. In broad strokes, his promise has already been explored to death, but the gangster, the cop, the devil breathes new life into it by elevating at least two of its three major characters far above their archetypes. The wit and neon-washed city streets might reek of Michelle Mann, and the cheesy guitar lick of Jo Jung-sok's annoyingly intrusive score might sound like a hot mess of drawn power chords that have clotted together, a rare misstep for the genuine composer responsible for The Handmaiden. But Lee's film is able to muscle its way through most of its aesthetic shortcomings on the power of its personalities. Ma is ultra lovable as the gangster with the heart of, well, not gold, but perhaps a blood-tarnished bronzy. The burly Korean American star, so good in the crossover hit Train to Busan, is a rumpled force of nature as a mob boss who is forced to become a caricature of himself in order to save face in front of his rivals. You almost accept that you had find pencil stripes tattooed along his skin if Jang over took off his guise and doll's costume. All it takes is a twitch of Ma upper lip or a puff of his cheek to convey the fragility of Jang's power and how threatened he feels by the oblivious serial killer who has put his empire in jeopardy. Not since his as a movie so implicitly understood that the robbers have more skin in the game than the cops, that crime is an existence but police work is just a job. And Lee is smart enough to let Jung outshine Jung just enough to show how urgent this is for the crime lord. Both men put themselves in harm's way and get involved in all the chaotic footy-cuffs that some with the authority of being in a Korean thriller, but only Jang kicks down a crock bar door, traps someone under it, and then beats the shit out of them by punching directly through the wood. On a related note, it's worth noting the movies are often a lot more intensive when they cannot really ungun to shoot their way out of a scene. It's the less animated moments where the gangster, the cop, the devil struggles, Lee inexplicable focus on interfocus sequenceables distracts from the rich dynamic between Jang and Jong and the fun of forcing their respective lacquers to interact. The film peaks when the gangsters bond with the cops by explaining that maybe many, but we have one heart. And while it's a bad enough that the convoluted poetic element suck the life out of things between set pieces, the worst part of it is that it leaves the devil with nothing to do but shulk around and wait to get caught. Kim cuts a menacing presence in the role of K, but there's nothing under his sharp, humpsy diesel shows no rhyme or reason or anything else. K is just an excuse to pair Jing and Ju together, but Lee does everything in his power to keep them apart before ending things with the Hail Mary pass for meaning. Something about the multiplicity of moral codes in the final moment. The only meaning here is the meaning that Emmy provides, and the message that he is a major star comes through loud and clear. Just ask Sylvester Stallone. His company is currently producing an American remake of The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil, and Emmy has already been hired to reprise his role. Best of all, the standards for crime thriller are a hell of a lot lower on the part of the planet. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil Fantasia International Film Festival. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil is a South Korean 2019 movie. Don Lee headlines this thoroughly engaging high-concept action thriller which, as the title suggests, brings together a gangster and cop to take down a sadistic serial killer. What it lacks in substance is compensated for by Lee's entertaining performance more than a little reminiscence of his macho roles in the enormously successful Train to Busan and The Outlaws. Released in Korea on May 15 ahead of its international premiere as a midnight screening at Cannes, The Gangster will seek to replicate the success of The Outlaws, which it shares a protection entirety PA entertaining. Much like other Korean gender fairs selected by Cannes, Lee Won-tae's actioner should not have a problem finding an audience overseas, something which is illustrated by parcels to more than one-handed priorities. The recent announcement of a Hollywood remake to be produced by Sylvester Stallone's Pulpy production, which will also star Lee in the same role, should further increase its profile. Set in the city of Canaan, south of Seoul in 2005, the gangster caught Lee as a gang boss called Jang Dong-soo. Late one night, he becomes involved in a minor car accident and is stabbed repeatedly by the other driver. Although he survives by fighting back, Jung is cautious that his image as a formidable gangster is at risk and is determined to hunt down his assailant for retribution. Jang is eventually approached by Detective Jung Tae-suk, who is hunting for a serial killer known as K. At the beginning of the film, K intentionally causes a car collision to get the driver out of the automobile before murdering him. Although Jong's superior officer doesn't believe there is enough evidence to tie his murder to a series of cold cases, the dogger investigator persuades the gangster Jang as the only living witness to this case to team up in an unlikely alliance between the legal and the underworld, creating an interesting dynamic in both collide and synthesis in catching an increasingly dangerous murderer. Visually, Lee Won-tae takes the lead from many Korean thrillers, adopting a familiar aesthetic which explores Chenon, known light and dark road as the rain continuously falls. He also brings some flair to the film's interior, echoing a which juxtaposes sinister moment with unlikely comedy. Kim Mu-yeol as the detective and Kim Sung-koo playing the vicious serial killer are contending notable in their respective roles, but the star of the show is Dong Lee, who is becoming increasingly prolific at home, starring in scores films, one of which was appropriately titled Unstoppable. While he may be at a risk of overexposure, something that might hinder domestic box office for the gangster. The film's simple concepts and solid execution should enable to find an enthusiastic audience, not least internationally. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil. Ma Dong-seok steal the show again. Fantasia 2019. Ma Dong-seok aka Don Lee is poised to become Hollywood's next big international breakout. He is already one of the most popular actors in South Korea with bona fide worldwide Seinfeld catchy thanks to standout roles in Korea hits like The Good, The Bad, and The Wit and Train to Busan, but with an MCU role in the Eternals on the horizon. He is on track to reach a bigger audience than ever before. And then there's The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil. Sylvester Stallone's production company already scooped up the 2019 South Korean thriller for an English language remake, which will see the actor reprise his starring role as a crime lord who teams with the cop to bring down a serial killer. Amy stars as Jang Dong-soo, the titular gangster who finds his criminal reign threatened when he is randomly attacked by a serial killer called Z. Determined to revoke his status as the criminal underground top dog, Jang team with the only cop in town who believes there's a serial killer on the loose, an ambitious and hot-tempered young officer named Tae-suk. Directed by Lee Won-tae, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is a stylish, good-looking piece of filmmaking, leaving behind the drab, grey-toned city capsules that dominate too many modern thrillers in favor of a noir via the rich tradition of Korean thriller. Spurred on by the worldwide success of cinematography visionary like Park Chin-wook, Kim Jong-soo, and Bon-wook, South Korea has become home to the what are almost universally recognized as the best 21st century that puts the gangster, the cop, the devil in the field with impossible competition. Indeed, MA is the main draw here, and in turn, his character is the most nuanced and intriguing of the bunch. Jang is a calm, confident king of the underworld, all sharp swords and unflappable steelness with no qualms with his killer instincts. Jang's always running the bottom line, even when he is hitting around some poor soul with his big mitts like a tomcat toying with its skill. He is just as soon rip your teeth out as shake your hands, but he is one of those classic stoic anti-heroes with a coat equal parts businessman and brute. Ame is one of the best gentle giant in the biz, gifted at constructing his hugging strength with the tender-hearted charm that makes him so lovable in films like Train to Busan and the criminal unrated arm wrestling drama Champion. And while Jang represents a harder, harsher tone for the actor, that radiant warmth still translates even at its most muted. That makes him an ideal contrast both the cop Tae-suk, whose own grey mortality hodges on the side of the law, and for the devil Akazet, the serial killer with no morals, no social contracts, and a preference for knives or fists. Unfortunately, neither of our little characters are as interesting or well developed as Chang. hamstringing the film where some of its best moments should be. Balancing that trifecta would elevate the gangster, the cop, the devil, but as it stands, that is an arc over familiar villain whose character never runs much deeper than creepy and never quite earns his title moniker as the devil. Tae-suk fares better a shot of Renge jeans and jacket cop who gets to walk into the film on a rock and roll guitar riff, and Kim has game chemistry with Ma, but because he's introduced as a fairly brutal man in his own right and never defined beyond his occupation, his descent into the criminal underworld never quite stir up his harnessed nest of conflicts. That makes AMA the counterpiece attraction here, and that's continually entertaining enough. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil is a film that could push harder and dig deeper, and there's a better version of his nestled in the final film. Hopefully, that's something the upcoming remake can capitalize on if it gets the right filmmaker, but even without that fine tuning, Lee delivers a thrilling crime actioner blasted by his eye for lining up the scene with pops of color, some brutal fight scenes, one very solid car chase, and another commanding performance from Ma. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil's Review, excellent premise, decent execution. At the outset, the concept of the gangster, the cop, and devil is the stuff of gender genius. A hard-nosed, irascible cop and tough guy crime boss become allies to combat a shared enemy when a knife-wielding serial killer comes to town. Lee Won-tae film has such an extraordinary premise ripe for exploring that it cannot help but feel a little bit disappointing when such a relatively straightforward flick is the result. Ma Dong-seok is best known to international audience for his role in Train to Busan, and he, above any member of the ensemble, completely inhabits his role as Jang Dong-soo, the burly crime boss with a moral code. There's a scene with a punching bag that in a few brief moments displays the final at its darkly comedic best, further emphasizing the physicality and presence of this fine actor. The titular cop Jung Tae-suk evokes numerous stereotypes of the gender as well, a lawman who barks at the whims of his superiors and bends the rules to seek out a higher justice. Paired with Jang, the two makes an effective odd couple, bickering and babbling in equal measure. Then there's the devil, who, like any diabolical creature, is mostly seen in half glimpses caught through the rain and dark. He is more ethereal than anything, a creature with little in the way of motivation save for violence and chaos. As such, he is actually the least interesting character, merely something to confront rather than something to be chilled or thrilled by. As written, there's a layer of guile and charm that the best on-screen psychopath can provide. Think Hannibal Lecter or Ledger take on the Joker, and despite vile grimaces and flashes of sharp cruelty, there's a little that's truly enticing about this killer. The storyline plays out in highly conventional ways, yet throughout there are moments of blistering action and fine buddy comedy moments that help elevate the work. Car chases and fisticuffs are often the stuff of South Korean films, and here the powers of the homegrown stunt coordinators is definitely on display. Unfortunately, despite all these visual protagonists, it doesn't quite rise to the level of some of the more artful action pieces to come from Korea, feeling more raw than unremarkable. There's a definite sense that Lee Won-tae film is onto something, and a reported remake involving Sylvester Stallone may well iron out some of the edges and more fitfully expand upon his excellent concept. Given that Ma Dong-seok is set to return, there's a plenty of promise here that we will be in for and even more thrilling treat the second time around. As it stands, this is a movie with a great idea and pretty decent execution, one where the fists fly, the cars crash, and you actually care about the characters involved, with a bit of tweaking, especially with regard to the devil character to make him more chilling and compelling. There's the opportunity to get up the ante even further and craft a magnificent film. For now, we have got a great bit of a gender fun, movie that at once evokes the rich history of this kind of film with its iconic character type, yet does so with enough originality and confidence to make the gangster, the cop, the devil a powerful tale of its own. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil, a South Korean movie released in 2019. This is about a gangster, about a cop, and a devil. Batman doing good work for thriller fan Fantasia 2019. It's already been optioned for a Hollywood remake with Sylvester Stallone, but you will want to watch the original first. It's a generalization to be sure, but there are few things finer and more constantly entertaining than South Korean thrillers. From their focus on twisty narratives, knife fights, and Fahrenheit fight action to their unstrained tonal electricity, their niche is the word of international cinema is more score and reliable than most. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil is the latest Korean export, and it's a slick thriller and a terrifically entertaining two-hander about enemies forced into an unlikely partnership to bring down a greater evil. It's also bloody great fun. Loosely based on true events, the film opens in the summer of 2005 as a late-night fender bender leaves the driver of the car that was hit, stabbed, slashed, and slaughtered in his own back seat that Jung Tae-suk has come to suspect a serial killer targeting random victim has staked out a hunting ground in the city, but his superior is having none of it. Jung is already in hot water for making ransom boss in Crocked Arcade run by mob boss Jang Dong was not coincidentally is paying off Jung's own boss for protection from just this kind of annoyance. Cop and gangster collide when Jung is attacked by the killer and lives to tell the tale. He is a bit worse for wear, but he gives almost as good as he gets and sends K, skipping into the rainy night. With no formal support from the police department, Jung convinces Jang that they have a better chance catching K if they work together. Their truce only lasts up through the hopeful capture through as their motivations are wholly individual. The cop wants justice and a promotion, the gangster wants revenge, and to save face, the devil doesn't stand a chance. Writer-director Lee Won-tae's The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil may not be a groundbreaking entry in the country's output alongside absolute gems like I Saw the Devil 2010, Confusion of Murder 2012 or The Wilderness 2017, but it still exists in a realm well above most of the gender efforts Hollywood knock out these days. From its compelling premise through its engaging leads and exciting action beats, the film is more often than not a captivating exploration of the blurry lines and varying gray areas between the law and those scattering it. There's some filler here in the form of montage scenes and office politics that slow down the film's momentum and energy, but the bulk is a stylish and fun ride into the night with two lovable Ash as our guides. Two, because while both the gangster and the cop are given time and character to engage and interest viewers, the killer is intentionally left as a blank state. A madman savagely murdering stranger on a whim is a frightening enough concept, but he is never allowed to be anything more than that. To that end, Kim Song-kyu does a good enough job making his character look madly homicidal, but he exists more as a target for the other two than as one third of the film. His best moment is a throwaway beat in a cafe as he watches a news report identifying a murder victim as one of his. This was not me, he whispers to himself, and when a nearby dinner overhears and looks up, Kim gives him the creepiest of looks. While K is one note as a character, Chung managed to be a few steps above. We have seen his brand of rebel cop before, of course, but he walks a fine line here between not giving a shit about the rules and caring just enough about the ideas of law and order. He is more than willing to bend restrictions, but then push comes to shove, and there is a lot of pushing, shoving, kicking, and stabbing here. His legion falls on the side of what's right. Kim Mu-yeol gave his just the right combination of swagger and earnestness so that his antics never feel overly familiar or dull. It's a fun enough thriller on its own merits, but the element that lifts it into the realm of the highly entertaining is M's performance as the big titty bear of a gangster who's just as likely to give his umbrella to a teen girl in a downpour as he is to pull a man's teeth out with his bare hands. He does both here, and Emmy makes you believe his Dichomi lives inside this man. He is broadly plumping a punching bag when we first meet him, and it's only after a couple minutes of fire sits that his lackeys unzip the bag to reveal the bloodied man inside. He stole the show as a sporting player and trained to Busan, but here he is the show. Reputation is everything to a gangster, he says, by the way of explanation as to why he need to catch the killer and make him pay. And it's enough to give him the greater arc over his cop counterpart. There's more at stake here for him, and Emmy ensures that the gangster's more human side sits at the forefront while still gifting viewer with a scene where he busts a door down on top of someone and proceeds to punch him repeatedly through the wood. It's glorious stuff. The gangster, the cop, the devil present three men each crossing the line is varied ways, and while it's clear who the truly vile one is, the point remains that all people are multitude and capable of more than one thing. There's a reason there's no and between the cop and the devil. The gangster, the cop, and the devil, that is released in 2019 in Korean cinemas. The Cop, the Devil hits 3 million admission at the box office. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil has hit 3 million admission at the box office. The latest movie starring Ma Dong-seok is gaining continued love from filmgoers. This feature film, which receives praise at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, is achieving steady success as it amazed a million viewers in 4 days. Today on May 29 KST, 15 days after the film hit theater, the movie gendered over 3 million audience in total. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil is a crime action film about a ring of serial killer gangster and a police force. Out of all films released in May, gangster, cops, and serial killers are regular fixture of Korean cinema. Director Lee Won-tae's second film, The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil, blends them together in a novel way, depicting how a cop and gangster team up to catch a serial killer. The movie's unique premise, fertilized and admirably suspenseful narrative, and highly entertaining action scenes through the titular characters remain regrettably underdeveloped throughout. As you may guess, the film's title refers to its three main characters. On a rainy night, a mysterious serial killer, the Devil, played by Kim Song-foo of Netflix Kingdom, tracks a gang boss named Jang Dong-soo, the gangster, played by the beefy Ma Dong-seok of Train to Busan, and along with the god's fame, Tha Jang arrives, his reputation suffers. In the moment, a downtrodden police detective named Jung Tae-suk, the cop played by Kim Mu-yeol of Northern Limit Line, spies opportunity. After his superiors continually thwart his attempt to investigate the serial killer, Chung enters into an unholy alliance with Jang. They will pool resources to catch the killer. Detective Jung gets to solve a case while gangster Jung gains a chance to avenge his loss of status. However, bringing a criminal to justice, arresting and getting revenge are two rather different objectives. This conflict between cop and gangster worldview embosses the gangster the cop the table with significant narrative momentum. The plot swings back and forth between Detective Jung and Gangster Jang's attempt to assert their perspectives on how to approach the serial killer case, which means you cannot easily predict what will happen next. As a result, the film remains constantly suspenseful and engaging. To its very end, there's no space for boredom, only entertaining. Ample testosterone-filled action scenes also help the gangster the cop that they will provide an entertaining viewing experience. The film draws heavily from tried and true action tropes in Korean cinema, most notably brawls between crowds of suit-wearing gangsters. Ma Dong-seok proves to be a perfect casting choice for this purpose. His bulky psyche and husky do not lend a measure of raw credibility to the many fights and chases that occur in the movie. I do wonder how concerned MA is about being typecast into tough guy roles, but he certainly plays two parts well and consistently so. While the gangster, the cop, the devil is undoubtedly entertaining, it does not attain classic status or create a listening impression. The film leans too much into the cop works with gangster premise, working its three titular characters, survivable archetypes. There's not much that is unique or well developed about its particular cop, its particular gangster, or its particular serial killer. This contrasts with the characters of classic Korean crime movies like Memories of Murder or A Bittersweet Life, whose character experience transformation or at least clear moments of self-reflection. The gangster, the cop, the devil had the potential to develop its characters more fully and use its unique promise as an asset instead of a crutch. Detective Jong and Gangster Jang's justice versus revenge dynamic could have supported a richer exploration on their inner natures, where the line between lawman and lawbreaker start blurring in morally complex ways. There were many instances like when Jung and Jang gave a briefing to their combined forces, where the film acknowledged that these lines exist and starts considering how it might blur them. Unfortunately, it never follows through completely and avoids meaningful engagement with fraught moral questions. Furthermore, the film's serial killer feels like a human MacGuffin that simply exists to spark Jang and Jang along, as opposed to a fully fledged character who sparks additional soul searching. Come for the punches. The gangster, the cop, the devil might not be a great feather for exploring human nature or the nonsense of justice, but that probably was not its inspiration. As an action movie to entertain yourself on a Friday night, it's a worthwhile selection with many novel elements. You might not end up watching it over and over again like you with the bittersweet life, but it's definitely not a waste of your time. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil, directed by Lee Won-tae, was released May 15, 2019. Running time is 1 hours and 49 minutes. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil cast Don Lee, Kim Mu-yeol, Kim Song-ho. Tough gang boss Dong-soo, played by Don Lee, is attacked by a vicious serial killer who is terrorizing his surroundings, and when he becomes the first person to survive such an attack, he teams up against his will with the cop Tae-suk, who despises Dong-soo's moral code but will do anything to apprehend the violent killer known only as K. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil, the second film of director Lee Won-tae, who previously made the colonial-era prison drama Man of Will 2017, is one of only two Korean features this year, along with Bong Joon, who's a parasite, to be invited to the Cannes Film Festival. The film is taking its place among the midnight screenings lineup, which has become a popular launchpad for Korean thrillers, including last year's The Spy Gone North and The Villainous and The Merciless, both screened in 2017. Leading the cast is Don Lee, who gained international recognition from his role in Jeon Sang-ho Train to Busan in 2016, another Cannes Midnight selection alongside him in Jim Mole of Forgotten 2017. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil 2019. Action, thrills, and humor collide after intimidating crime boss Jang Dong-soo, Korean star Ma Dong-seok, fast becoming Asia answer to Dan Jensen, survives a random roadside attack by a serial killer. The incident, seen as a sign of weakness by his peers, Jang is eager to earn respect back, with his fists deployed to staggering effect from the get-go and team up with a hot-headed cop who will on the trail of a series of murders. The deal: whoever catches the pip get to dispense their own brand of justice. Ma is ultra lovable as the gangster with a heart of well not gold but perhaps a blood tenacious Tronzi. The burly Korean American star, so good in the crossover hit Train to Busan, is a trampled force of nature as a mob boss who is forced to become a caricature of himself in order to save face in front of his rivals. You almost accept that you had find pinstripes tattooed along his skin if Chang ever took off his guy and doll's costume. As much fun as is it to watch beat people up and struck around in shiny pinstripe suits is much of a pleasure to watch him think all through. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is a riveting South Korean thriller that masterfully blends the intensity of crime drama with the ball-pounding suspense of a cat and mouse chase. Directed by Lee Won-tae, the cinematic gem stands as a testament to the brilliance of Korean cinema, offering a storyline that is as gripping as it is unique. The film premise is electrifying. A notorious gangster Jang Dong-soo, played with magnetic charisma by Ma Dong-seok, and a relentless cop Jung Tae-suk, played by the compelling Kim Mu-yeol, from an unlikely alliance to hunt down a serial killer. This unusual partnership sets the stage for a series of tension-filled confrontations, tragic monologues, and explosion action sequences. Ma Dong-seok, as always, dominates the screen with his towering presence and nuanced performance. He skillfully balanced the raw brutality of a gangster with unexpected flashes of vulnerability, making Jung Tae-suk an unforgettable character. Kim Mu-yeol shines as the determined and principled detective, bringing grit and emotional depth to the role. The dynamic between the two leads is a highlight, cracking with intensity and debugging respect that evolves through the narrative. What sets this film apart is an implacable pacing and storytelling. The script deftly weaves together elements of action, suspense, and dark humor, keeping viewers on the edge of their seats. The killer, portrayed with calling judgment by Kim Song-woo, is a menacing presence whose unpredictability adds an extra layer of tension. The cinematography deserves special mention, capturing the gritty underbelly of South Korea with a moody, atmospheric aesthetic. The action sequences are expertly choreographed and the fight scenes feel raw and visceral, adding to the film's authenticity. Director Lee Won-tae's ability to maintain a perfect balance between character-driven drama and high-octane action make this movie an unforgettable experience. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is not just a thriller, it is a study of unlikely alliance, moral ambiguity, and the thin line between justice and revenge. In conclusion, this film is a must-watch for fans of thrillers, crime dramas, or anyone looking for a gripping story with stellar performances. Its unique premise, powerhouse acting, and age of sure sheets narrative ensure that The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil will leave a lasting impression. This is a Korean cinema at its finest, bold, intense, and utterly captivating. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil, starring the great action actor Dan Lee aka Ma Dong-seok, and the villain featuring Kim Song-kyu, and directed by Lee Won-tae. The movie is based on real incident of a serial killer who kills just for fun. The film tells about how partnership of the cop and the gangster leads to catching the killer. The film portrays about crime, criminal investigation, and the trial processes and its apparent difficulties. Hailing from criminology and as a advocate in, I can confirm that these issues are observed in almost every jurisdiction where there is adversary system of law. Occasionally clever and back to bursting with gritty black humor and satisfying action set piece. The Korean thriller The Gangster, the Cop and the Devil is a refreshing change of pace. Part mismatched buddy action picture, part police pastoral, part mob movie and part nasty serial killer flick. The Gangster, the Cop and Devil nicely blends a lot of different gender to create a widely entertaining experience that feels both comfortably familiar and pressingly original at the same time. Based on a true story from 2005, although I would love to know what's true and what is not here. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil looks at an unlikely partnership between a goof and dedicated detective who team up with the mafioso he's been tracking in a bid to save the city from a shockingly prolific serial killer. Arrogant, rule-breaking detective Jung Tae-suk is constantly given assignment that he doesn't want to investigate. He'd much rather spend his days shutting down the criminal operating illegal casinos and arcades owned by the ruthless and flashy dressing Jang Dong-soo. One of the cases assigned to the backdooring Jung is the stabbing death of a motorist following a fender bender. The perpetrator of the vicious attack likes to ram people from behind with his car and attack them when the driver they hit gets out of their car and inspect the damage. Jang is one of the unlucky folks to the targeted by the serial killer and although he is stabbed, the mobster survived the attack and severe revenge. It's not long before Jung, who is frustrated at the department's unwillingness to acknowledge that a recent string of similar murder and disappearances are the work of a serial killer, and fearful that major crimes will take the case and glory of solving it away from him. Align himself with his sworn enemy is a bid to stop the mass murder reign of terror. Writer and director Lee Won-tae delivers a gleefully amusing and shockingly layered thriller with the gangster, the cop, and the devil. One suspect from the film setup, which also heavily relies upon a budding gang war between Jang and some aspect travel mobster as an integral part of the story. That thing could be overstuffed, but Won-tae effortlessly transitions between the three primary ritual points of view. Each of the lead actor is given plenty to work with, either on their own or playing off of each other. The real delight here is watching them work. As with most action pictures and thriller, there are a decent number of car chases, brutally violent moments of shock, and bone-crunching brawls, but the gangster, the cop, and the devil is more intrigued by darkly comedic human interaction and increasingly complicated maneuvering on the parts of the anti-heroes and the villains. Mu-yeol and Dong-suk are both incredibly charismatic performers who add just as much to the film as Won-tae expertly realized action and thriller beast. The gangster, the cop, the devil plays out like a cleverly orchestrated game of one-upmanship between two men who want to beat each other to the finish. It's a noble quest to stop a reprehensible criminal, but it's also undoubtedly selfish and moving on both their parts, a dynamic that gives the film a healthy dose of levity to cut through the dark and crime. Sometimes they'll play nicely with each other, while other times they are more than willing to perform act of unwitting self-sabotage that will allow the killer to continue his deadly act. Neither of the characters are all that well liked within their communities outside of a close-knit band of fellow co-workers, but Won-tae is careful and clever enough to never paint these flawed protagonists as being mirror image of each other. The gangster, the cop, the devil is prospective and original enough to constantly remind the viewer that these combined forces will always be oil and water to each other, and that tension persists throughout the concurrent manhunt. The action is gorgeously shot and choreographed whenever it arrives, even if most of it reserves for a climax that loses steam the longer it drags out. The pace is brisk and it's constantly fun to watch. It's the kind of film where one can sense that an American remake is just around the corner. And indeed, credited producer David Stolen has those rights. But the original already seems fine enough on its own. The gangster, the cop, the devil is popcorn entertainment that delivers the goods at every turn and nows counterbalance to the recent glut of uninspired Hollywood tentpole blockbuster currently taking up way too much space down at the multiplex. If it's playing anywhere near you, you owe it to yourself to seek out this hidden gem of the summer movie season. The Gangster, the Cop and the Devil open in Toronto at Cineplex Express Walk and in the Venture at Silver City Quantum on Friday, June 7, 2019. The Gangster, the Cop and the Devil movie released in 2019. My note on the Akigen, the high concept Korean thriller of course evokes the good, the bad and the ugly as three larger than life characters engage in a tripartite feud that leaves a lot of bodies in its wake. The English title gives the gangster top billing apatly since burly Ma Dong-seok gets the showest role as Jang, a boss who is presiding over a fictitious slot machine empire while fending off challenge from all sides. The gangster, the cop, and the devil. He is paid off the police higher ups, but Ruffy cop Jung insists on hustling low-level thugs and actually doing something about organized crime even though he is assigned to the crimes of violence, murders, kidnaps that take place outside the cozy circle of corruption. Pleased with himself after a sit-down deal, Jang opts to drive himself home without his entourage and is triggered by K, a serial killer who has no idea who his prospective victim is and has an ammo of ramming on night monsters from behind in a fender bender often stabbing them when they stop to argue about insurance. The slave buddies Jang survives the encounter and sets out to catch the killer to regain face. Using his own sketch artist and desiccated crew, while Jung is hugely willing to team up with his enemy to go after the lone monarch even though he thinks Jang is the higher priority target and the Kenny Croc is not about declaring evidence to put off a bunch of a gangland killing on the psychopath. The gangster, the devil, and the cop. Organized crime dramas are always a hit, almost a big of a hit as those about serial killers and the eccentric cops who hunt them. So what happens when these two genders intersect? You get the gangster, the cop, the devil, an incredibly fun romp that sits somewhere between the departed and Ichi the killer. While hunting for what he expects to be a serial killer, a detective comes across his only survivor, a crime boss. Unlikely allies, the cop and the gangster do away with trying to beat each other to the finish line and team up to track down the stab-happy villain. The familiar themes are overlapped in a way that creates a very fun ride. The fight scenes are intense, the gangster scenes are terrifying, the tortured cop is believable, and the killer is downright scary. It managed to feel like each of these characters was plucked from their own gender movie and placed into this one but never feels outdated or a parody. There's a moment later on in the film where the killer asks the gangster, "How are we different?" This is reminiscent of the moment in The Departed where its gangster Frank Costello asks, "We can become cops or criminals. Today, what I am saying to you is this: when you are facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?" In both films, the sentiment set up that gangster and cops have more in common than you'd think on the surface. So the switching place and duplicity of it all make it difficult to distinguish good guy from the bad guy. The difference here is that while in The Departed it's difficult to distinguish good from bad and cop from gangster, here it's easy to mistake who the gangster, cops and good guys are, but there's no mistaking that the devil is the bad guy. Third, you never let your guard down because you sense the character have not either. You know exactly who to root for and which team is the winning one. This movie managed to stay tense for the entire runtime without over feeling exhausting or overdone. The product of such a high stake situation will well created and acted familiar trope characters and tension feels real and never lets up. The film suffers a few continuity missteps and the entire final doesn't make a whole lot of sense if any, but I am willing to forgive that for what a great time I had watching the film. This might not be a horror movie, but the devil's confusions are poor terror. I would not sleep on this shit. Rumor has it there is an American remake in production helmed by Sylvester Stallone keeping actor Don Lee in his role as gangster. The American remakes can bring a lot to the table. You'd miss out to not watch this Korean film in the original form. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil Society Reviews. A film so good it already has an American remake in the work and it's not hard to see why. With the summer movie schedule help of Disney sequels and superhero movies that don't look very promising. A film based on a true story from South Korea wins big praise for an interesting concept and even better execution. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is a film about a complicated relationship between overzealous, fame-hungry cop Jung Tae-suk and a local crime boss. Jang Dong-soo is the city of Seoul. One night our crime lord is stabbed by a man but manages to fight him off. It is then that Jang realizes that a string of stabbing murder are connected and there is a serial killer on the loose. Jang makes a deal with Jang to combine the forces of the criminal Karbali and the local police squad and fight one of the most vicious killers in the country. The problem is the two sides have very different plan of what they are going to do to him when they catch him. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is everything you ask out for a good film is the current age of cinema, a good setup, compelling characters, solid performance and a world you can get lost in for 2 hours. The film is set in the mid-20s, follows the real-life event of a terrorizing killer and the effort it took to stop him. It is very intriguing to watch the police and criminal wars come together to stop a common enemy that is just per evil. Kim Son-koo plays the old-hearted psychopath who kills at random and indiscriminately. The plot keeps the tension high and the audience engaged through the very end while providing a few twists in between. The film provides Hollywood-like quality while managing to keep it focused on the central story which has become a daunting task for Hollywood filmmakers in the last few years. When it comes to quality, the South Korean film industry has been on a roll in the last few years and The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is no exception. This film is currently out in AMC theaters nationwide. The Gangster, The Cop and The Devil first look. You can always count on the Korean to live up the official selection at Cannes and director Lee Won-tae out of competition action thriller The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil provided a welcome shot in the arm during the winning days of the festival. It's 2005 and there's a serial killer on the loose or so believe loose cannon detective Jung Tae-suk. His superior are not convinced by Jong Soon finds an unlikely partner in local mob boss Jang Dong-soo, who survives an attempted stabbing by the mysterious murderer and is out for revenge. I can probably catch his quicker, declares Chang, and he is not wrong. Compared to the hopeless cops, the gangsters have invaluable resources, manpower, and freedom. From such a thing as ethics and due process, a shaky alliance is formed. While not widely originally, Asian crime cinema has mined those uncommon team-ups and ethical ambiguities for decades. The gangster, the cop, the devil pulls off its familiar twist and turns with style and nerve. An expensive electric neon aerial shot at the start of the film places us firmly in Michelle Montt territory, and the machismo of the film's protagonist spill over into Lee Won's amped-up aesthetic, from flashy scene transitions and montages to generous helping of slow-mo, crunchy fight choreography, and a driving road soundtrack throughout. The gangster, the cop, the devil is slick, stylish, and constantly entertaining, but it would be nothing without its headline lead performance. Kim Mu-yeol has a Colgate grin and watermelon pass-ups, and his Jung Tae-suk likes to blow off steam by wandering into an illegal gambling den for a scrap where his partner is stuck in a traffic jam on the way to a crime scene. And even when he is wrestling with his conscience as he shares intelligence with the bad guys to catch the worst guy, he is still powered by swarm and charm. I expect Chris Pratt to take on the role if there's even a Hollywood remake. There's a no denying that this is Ma Dong-seok film, now familiar to international audience after a breakout supporting role as a man mountain, soon to be father in the zombie horror Train to Busan. He is the perfect fit for a one-man mobster army. He is given many opportunities to use his hulking farm to its full potential, most memorably when he launches his first through a wooden door to deliver a knockout punch to the poor sword covering on the other side. But Lee recognizes its loose, soulful, even good-natured depth. Jang Dong-soo may be violent mobster, but he has more Percy and the helpless cops on the other side of the law. Indeed, for all the tooth-pulling torture and nefarious dealings, there seems to be more camaraderie and community in the mob than there is in the bickering, bitchy, and thoroughly demoralized police force. This is perhaps best captured in a small scene that might be a cheeky riff on Hayao Miyazaki My Neighbor Totoro, in which Ma Dong-seok's peer-like giant offers his umbrella to a schoolgirl at a bus stop. When the detective interrupts, kissing the girl for unwitting roasting a criminal, she declares, "You look more like a gangster than him." Subster hardy, but as with all of the gangster, the cop, the devil's on the nose player, it gets the job done. The gangster, the cop, and the devil. After his iconic role in the international hit Train to Busan, Ma Dong-seok, or Don Lee as he goes by in the West, he became one of the most recognizable and prolific Korean actors, frequently playing off his gruff but charismatic screen persona. With him on board, the gangster, the cop, the devil, the latest film from writer-director Lee Won-tae has been an eagerly awaited release, playing at Cannes out of competition and picking up sale around the world, pitching itself as a hard-edged mob thriller with shots of moral ambiguity on the side. A Hollywood remake produced by Sylvester Stallone with Ma in the same role has since been announced. Apparently based loosely on a series of real-life murder, the film is set in the Cheonan in the summer of 2005 and opened with maverick detective Jung Tae-suk trying to convince his boss that what appears to be a road rage killing or robbery might be something more sinister. Though his suspicions are ignored, events take an unexpected turn when the killer, who also started with Emmy in the box office smash The Outlaws, strikes again, inadvertently targeting mob boss Jang Dong-soo, attacking him on the road and barely escaping with his own life. Jang survives and with his pride and reputation hurting him more than his wants, decided to track down his assailant with the help of his goons, with Jang as the case only witness. Jung seizes his opportunity and tries to convince the gangster to team with him in bringing down the murderer through things don't go so plain. Although it's a little hard to get excited about yet another glossy, violent Korean mob flick, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil does at least have an interesting premise with an edgy dynamic front and center and with much blurring of the line between good and evil. This is itself is nothing new through Lee Won-tae's script is efficient and packed in the requisite number of twists and turns along the way to its satisfying if predictable conclusion. While Jong and Jung's investigation are simplistic and largely based around random coincidence, Lee throws in some intriguing subplots revolving around their trouble at work and with other gangs, and this helps to distract from the overall lack of originality and substance. There's a plenty of action to keep things moving throughout the admirably brief sub-2-hour running time, mostly in the form of the usual maze pros and the occasional stabbing. All nicely choreographed and sleekly handled, May having lot of chances to throw his fists around and play the rough guy. Perhaps surprisingly given its serial killer subject matter, the film is not particularly nasty with little blood or graphic murder scene, and this perhaps will count against it for viewer accepting something grittier. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is a visually impressive film, though it has a very familiar look to most others of its type, with lots of rain, neon, and modern noir stylists, and countless shots of goody gangster luxury and familiar looking police station. Thankfully, Lee seems to be at least vaguely aware of this and doesn't take things too seriously, amping up the usual theme of corruption, betrayal, and loyalty almost to the point of pantomime. With the cast spending most of the running time shouting at each other, the performances are very much key, and Ma Dong-seok is perfect in his role, pulling off the balancing act of making Jang a vaguely likable, if not entirely sympathetic, mobile villain, effortlessly stealing every scene he appears in and making the film far more fun than it might otherwise have been. Playing Jang like a bull in a china shop from start to finish, Emmett dominates the film, leaving Kim Mu-yeol and Kim Song-woo very much in his shadow. It's certainly fitting that the film is called The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, and not the other way around. Ma's presence really gives things a boost and lifts the gangster, the cop, the devil up a couple of notches, preventing it from being lost in the already overcrowded Korean gangster genre playing field, all the better for its sensible running time and energetically directed by Lee Won-tae. Though there's nothing even remotely new here, it's an enjoyable film if one that would have been improved by not pulling so many of its punches. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil screened as part of the London East Asia Film Festival 2019. The Gangster, The Cop, and The Devil to lump our South Korean cinema together and paint the industry with a singular "this is what they do" brush is to do is a disservice. It cut across gender boundaries, topics, and subsets with standout in each category along the way, but goddamn do the South Korean filmmakers do dark, thoughtful crime really well. Old Boy, I Saw the Devil, The Jealousy, and many more. The latest addition to this canon is Lee Won-tae, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil. The premise is simple circumstance. Compel vicious crime boss Jang Dong-soo trained to Busan to team up with cocky knot-headed cop Jung Tae-suk, warrior of the dawn, to catch hipster serial killer K. Each has their own motivation and drives that test his uneasy accord as they use each other for the resources the other has they don't. Everyone plays everyone else on same level, twist and turns, betrayal and double cross and shifting allegiances and power dynamics bonds. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil does not revamp the procedural formula, but it offers solid action, heavy thrills, tension and pressure, and moments of stark violence. A good comparison point is a light version of Anne Hong Jin's 2008 film The Chester. While the villain is terrifying enough in the moment, creepy and leering, Kim has a sharp, sinister grin and unhinged eyes. K killing are random and unmotivated, that's crazy in one regard, but fails to capitalize on that end. For a narrative perspective, misses the chance to create strain and anxiety with calculated stalking and hunting. At times is more plot device than character. Fortunately, most of the screen time goes to Jang and Chung. Their antagonist friction drives everything forward. Kim plays brash and arrogant well, picking and pottering and provoking until he gets the reaction he wants. It's a no surprise Ma is great, he always is, but Gangster uses his skill set especially well. Calm and collected, he has a cool manic, but he also the physicality to drive home just how dangerous Jang is. Not in a highly skilled martial arts sense, but he has a raw edge, and when it comes down to it, he just tears through dudes in a primal, brutal way. The combination of mind and muscle helps him keep hold of his empire and makes him a nerve-rattling figure. Only his second feature, Lee has a strong grasp on the action element of which there are many. Plenty of car and foot chases made excellent use of the show landscape from the glitzy urban environments to the tangled labyrinth back alleys and hidden state wells that sneaky throughout the city. Juxtaposing upscale glamour with gritty streets, but it's the epic brawl that shine brightest. Multiple times he sent waves of human crashes into one another in massive, sprawling throwdown. Clearly staged and meticulously executed, these should more than satisfy action enthusiasts. At times there's a but much going on and plot thread that don't contribute to the primary narrative. We see gangland power struggle, police corruption, boss who's at work, and more. Some are textured like illustrating the length Jang will go to demonstrating Jung's impulsiveness but eventually gets repetitive. We only need to see Jung but heads with his superior who is on the take from Jang so many times to get the point. Even with a few rough patches, the Gangster, the Cop, and the Table bubbles with the propulsive energy, polished and glossy. It moves along with an easy, rapid momentum, married action beats, and another top-tier performance from Ma Dong-seok as a businessman brawler who provides a thoughtful sharpness to this fun, if familiar, crime thriller. The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil, released in 2019, is a Korean movie. Worlds collide in Won-tae Lee's The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil. The gangster and the detective have very different ideas about dispensing justice, but both concise that a degree of cooperating will increase their chances of catching the killer. Two bad guys working together to bring down the worst guy, as Jang puts it. But there are plenty of twists packed into a film whose only real downside is its length running time. The killer may not have the resources of either of the men hunting him, and with moral argument much like those of the average 12 years old internet troll, he is not going to overcome their philosophies, but he has enough kicks up his sleeve to keep things interesting. The film may sometimes rebel, but it's punctuated with action set pieces which combine great stunt work and a playful wit. Lee proved adept at shifting the mood between humor and horror with serious bleak moments, ensuring that we cannot forget what's at stake, not just revenge but stopping a monster. Meanwhile, Jang is concerned that the situation is making him look weak and could inspire moves on his trajectory by rivals. whilst the cop is in trouble with his supervisors, tempted by the possibility of advancement and concerned that major crime may steal his case. Impromptu fight seems to break out as easily in the police station as in the underworld and make use of every prop available. Beautifully designed sets and costume contribute to the sense of a world just parallel to ours where the rules are not quite the same. Conventional morality sidelong along with taste, yet the cinematography together with some great single scene spotting performance keeps pulling us back to the mundane world on which these larger than life character action inevitably impact through often played for love these contrast and greatness to a story that could otherwise become a cartoonish. The gangster, the cop, and the devil, a Korean released 2019 movie, and it was about a serial killer who, if you want to enjoy a fast crime action with three great actors, this is the right movie to pick when a serial killer accidentally chooses a gangster as his next victim. So, this was a very enjoyable movie. Following an out of competition screening at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil makes its way to local cinemas, a follow-up to director-writer Lee Won-tae 2017 period piece Man of Will. His latest effort is a sharply contemporary thriller. A serial killer, Kim Song-kyu, is tracking his gang around stabbing businessmen after rear-ending them with his car. Author detective Jung Tae is having trouble convincing his bosses that there's a connection between the killing. When mob boss Jang Dong-soo is the only person to survive an attack, it a race against the clock to catch the killer before the mob does. At least until Jung puts aside his hatred for guns and works with him. Allegedly based on a true story, the thriller takes place in August 2005 against the backdrop of gangs running illegal slaughter in Korea. Despite the period setting, or perhaps because of it, director Lee delivers something that feels both entirely modern in its approach while being a throwback to a kind of kitchen sink serial killer thriller that could have come out of the late 1990s. Amid the typical investigative montage, the Seven inspires sprawling yet precise notebook of a serial killer, Lee stages some impressive actions as well. There's at least two top-notch car chase sequences and one on foot that takes us into the surprisingly tense environment of a crowd parlor. Lee also uses the physicality of Ma Dong-seok at every opportunity, whether it's lauding over his minion like a kingpin in an expensive suit, using a few as a punching bag, or fighting off a horde of minions alongside Kim Mu-yeol.